So if we've done all of our due diligence, we've gone through all the different phases, we've worked out the kinks in our software, what do we need to do to prepare for launch? What do we need to do to push that button so that our software now goes live? Well, you need to look at what it is required for us to actually go from our development environment to production. Is this going to be a cloud-based deployment? Are we going to push the button and release our software to AWS or Kubernetes or some other type of web or cloud-based solutions? Do we need to write deploy scripts? Do we need to script something out so that it's just a button? We push the button and we have that continuous integration, that continuous building and deploying of our applications, say through like Bitbucket. Is there any other type of coordination or integration that needs to be done before you can push the button? By that, I mean, do we need to set up any user accounts so that once we go live, people can log into this particular application? Do we need to do some type of alpha or beta run of the software to kind of do a pre-launch or soft launch with the customers before we go live? Is there any type of data that needs to be added to the system before launch? So at this point, right before we go live, as we're pushing everything to the cloud or to our production environment, is there any types of data scripts that we need to load to set up the application for use? So these are some of the questions and things you need to look for here. So when dealing with our classroom app, so we potentially want to do something like a soft launch. So we would probably get a handful of users together, have a couple people go in as instructors, set them up, set up some classes, and then have a couple of students, mock students, come in and actually try to use the application in a production environment. So you do kind of a smoke testing in production. If all that goes well, then you do an official launch of your software and things are good. So after you push that button, we then do what we call a handoff, or where do we go from here? So the handoff is once the final product is delivered, you want to meet with the customer to present the final product. This is where we discuss any issues that were essentially found at the end of the launch, any particular issues with the software that was not caught through the entire process, or possibly some issues that might be found from a user's perspective in ways in which the software is being used that was not initially anticipated, or as far as the end user, they're using it in a way that the software allows them to use it for, but was not what it was intended for. So do we have some bugs that we need to fix, or functionality changes that need to be made? So again, here we also sit down and talk with how to deal with any additional features or issues that come up from the customer. Now, if this is an internal product, like this classroom application, so at this point, once we go live, and once we have everything ready, so where do we want to go from there? So here we want to take that classroom application and we want to promote it. We want to start building out a bootcamp idea or classroom idea, and then we deploy it to our website, and then we start marketing. So the handoff could be to a customer, or the handoff could essentially be to another department within the company, for instance, marketing. So once the product is out there, it's shipped, now we need to kind of go through that marketing blitz or that campaign to get the product to market so that we actually get it out there. We're presenting it to everyone and everyone's happy, and we then start getting calls on the software. So when you get ready for the handoff and we're live, you also need to make sure that we deal with things like customer support. So we may need to hire some additional resources based on the number of calls coming in. Now, with customer support, it could be twofold. One, you might need a customer support page in order to support a larger base customer base. If this is, say, like Walmart or Amazon, where you have a large feature face to a lot of different people. It could be as simple as you create a web portal or some type of portal into your site where customers could come in and report feature requests or bug fix or bugs that they're encountering with the software. So in that particular case, you can then go through and triage, on a weekly, daily, or quarterly basis, what features you want to add or fix within your application. If this is a piece of software you've written for a specific customer, so you are essentially the development house and you are delivering the software to a organization or an individual, then at that point, once you hand it off, you might get some additional feature requests or sign off on the product and you get paid. So let me take a moment there and open this up for discussion. I know I kind of went through this a little quickly, but I wanted to save a lot of this for the Q&A.
So Michael, what is the most scary thing about starting a new project?
So one of the big things with project development, or really any type of software development, is do we have enough requirements to write the software? So from a new project perspective, there's always that unknown. You might spend weeks, days, or years designing a particular application. And the problem is, depending upon the time it takes you to come up with the concept and the idea, a couple things could happen. One, if you're very quick to market and you're like bleeding edge, cutting edge, then you're basically going to have to figure out how to build the tools to get your product to market. If you are building something that is using already existing technologies, then you run the gambit of, okay, cool, I can build something. I have all these tools and features out here I can use. But what you potentially run into is, okay, now am I in a market where there is a lot of competition, and is someone going to come steal my feature, or am I going to build a feature that is going to be useful enough for someone to leave another product and come use mine? And then you have the final risk where if you are taking so long to get to market, you do so much time prepping and preparing your requirements to build your product, did you miss your chance? Has someone else already beat you to the market, and are you basically now building something that no one's going to want?
I know you talked about test in your presentation. It's like, okay, you have this new product or new project you've worked on. So when do you say, like, you know what, this project has been tested thoroughly, or what percentage do you have to say, like, okay, now I feel like I can sell this product, let me say, to the UAT team or the end user, like, okay, you can begin using this new project?
Again, that kind of depends on the application, and it could also depend on the software shop. So if you are a really good agile shop, and this is a brand new application, one of the things you could do early on in the agile process is come up with some quick requirements, some quick design choices at the beginning, prototype it out, get something out there that may have one or two features. Now, with the example of the classroom application, you're going to need to have at least some core functionality in place. You can't kind of skip the whole classroom idea. However, if you want to introduce the classroom idea, or maybe release like a presentation type software where you can have a instructor that can post or host a class, and then you could have people log into the class. So that could be one area where you could kind of get to market quickly without building out the whole classroom idea. So you have this concept where, okay, I'm an instructor, I can start up a presentation, and then I can send links out to people and they can join into my my lecture. Well, that could be like quick to market phase one. And then phase two, okay, now I start building that dashboard, or I build a like a workbook for the students. So the instructor could post some assignments and the students could come work. So you could do it in a phased approach. So that's one of the things you got to be careful of when you're trying to build something new. Can you get something to market quickly enough with enough features that people are going to be interested? And then as you slowly roll out the application, are you going to keep their interest? Are you going to build the product that you want for the community? One of the interesting ways, if you do it this way, is your initial idea, your initial roadmap for your application might change based on the community that you're servicing. So your initial thoughts for your end customer might not be the direction that the software ends up going. However, you do have to be careful with that, because if you go down the path of following the community, you might end up with a lot of scope creep. So if you do listen to the community and you do build features based on the community response, you need to be mindful that what you're building is still structured enough and tiered enough that you're doing things in a nice organized way, that you can do that continuous development, so that you don't end up in scope creep and basically one new feature doesn't take months to come out. Instead, maybe it can take a couple of weeks to come out.
Oh, cool, man. Thanks, Michael.
Oh, no problem. And that actually brought up a thought. So one of the applications or games that I've played over the last few years that kind of really fits into this model is Pokemon Go. So it may sound weird, but when the game first came out, they had promised all these features within this application that they were going to build for the Pokemon community, which was, okay, you can go catch your Pokemon. You're going to be able to battle with your friends. You can battle, gym leaders. You can battle Team Rocket. Well, when the application came out day one for launch, all you could do was basically go out and catch Pokemon. There was no other functionality in the game. You couldn't even take pictures of your Pokemon. It was just simply, here's Google Maps. You're got a little skin. You can walk around in the world. You see Pokemon pop up, and then you try to catch them. That was it. So they overpromise and underdeliver. However, they made so much money on just that basic implementation that they delivered that they were able, over the course of 5 years, to build an application that met their initial target requirements, and they built a community around their application that continues to grow today. So that's one way to think about looking at your application. Now, take that same model and flip it. They came out with another mobile application for Harry Potter, Wizards Unite, that completely flopped. Similar concept, similar premise, different genre. They just could not get it to take off. It just was, basically they missed their mark. The application itself did not meet the expectations of the customer. And because of that, after a couple of years, that application is basically dead. It has almost no development whatsoever, and I'm not even sure the servers are still alive. So those are kind of two examples. One of how you can kind of quickly get to market. Unfortunately, you overpromise, underdeliver, whereas another one, you basically deliver something that was promised, but ended up being something no one wanted. Good questions.
No, but that's a good little follow-up, is the which sort of goes into Dave's question too, is it is always a thing, that sort of that balance of, do we, now we've talked about this a lot actually, do we shoot for 100% and wait longer, or do we cut some corners and push this thing out? It goes back to lots of discussions we've had about code coverage and things like that, but sometimes it's not the amount of bugs, it's just which bugs. It's you're going to have, like, those two games are examples where you have stuff where if you've got something that's pretty new or in an environment that's changing or challenging, then you're going to have issues. It's just sort of nature of the business. But if you can solve a couple of the big problems and do those consistently and not tick off your users, then you've got a lot better chance for success. It actually sort of buys you time then to come back and then get the smaller details.
Exactly. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this presentation to begin with, because I wanted us to kind of revisit the whole software development lifecycle, that software test lifecycle, but from a higher level. Like, take a step back and look at it from the not just the customer level, but also look at it from the the business model. How are we actually looking at the whole development process? Very good. All right, so let's quickly recap. So in today's presentation, we walked through kind of the whole software development process from the business level. We started out with talking about a problem. In our particular case, building a classroom or course application. We talked about different ways of breaking down the problem, looking at roles, who's going to use the application, what type of features you want in the application, what type of frameworks and architectures do you want? Do you need databases, the different components? So by breaking down the problem into smaller pieces, it allows us to kind of pick and choose the different features that we want to roll out in our application quickly. We then talked about designing the application, kind of doing those storyboarding, the wireframes of the application, kind of get the look and feel of the application before we actually go out and start building. Because if we do this first and we do it right, when we get to the prototype phase, actually writing the application, putting it together, we should hopefully reduce a lot of that overhead, a lot of that scope creep, and keep our costs low and get the product to market quickly. We then also talked about testing and how that we need to go through and actually test the application, not just from the user endpoint, but test different things like integration, use different types of testing tools, making sure that things work. So as long as the application works, then we can move into the next two stages, which is, okay, once the application is done, once we're ready to deliver, we deploy the application, we push that red button, we launch the application, and then the software goes live. And then once everything is out there, once we start fixing some of the bugs that are reported by the customer, we talk about the handoff and next steps, where we either deliver the software to the end user. If we're our own customer or our own producer, we could deploy our application to the app stores, and then our customers could start downloading our apps. And then what's the next step? What type of features do we need to start including after this? What type of additional support do we need if we start getting a lot of calls because there's potential problems or potential features requests? Do we need to start a marketing campaign to start promoting our application? So these are the overall steps that we go through during the process of software development. And as always, I'd like to thank you all for your time, and we appreciate you joining us. And if you want to discuss any of our topics further, not just software development, but anything from our website, you can send us questions, comments, or suggestions through any of these areas. We are on email, info@develpreneur.com. You can reach us on our website. We have a contact us page. We're on Twitter @Develpreneur. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/Develpreneur. And if you'd like to check out any of our other videos and podcasts, you can check us out on develpreneur.com. Our videos are also on vimeo.com/Develpreneur. And you can find us on YouTube if you go to YouTube and in the YouTube search, type Develpreneur. Our goal is making every developer better. Have a wonderful day.